Get going now. Okay, so welcome, Mohamed Thiam. Thank you for being our guest today. Welcome to the journey. So the journey is a podcast that brings local voices to our audiences. You know, sometimes we idolize movie stars, we idolize athletes, and we make them our heroes. And there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that because they have success, they have the money, and that's what most of us want. That's what most of us want. Although I think there's more to life than just fame and money. I think peace of mind and family, I think those things are critical, for me at least.
Absolutely.
So the journey basically is a platform that gives everyday person a voice to come and share their stories, because I think that it is my belief that there's something that all of us can learn from each other, and we don't have to look to the movie stars and the athletes and the Instagram influencers and hedge fund managers to be inspired.
Right.
You can be inspired by somebody in your church. You can be inspired by somebody in your mosque. You can be inspired by someone at your park, someone you see every day.
Right.
They could be your inspiration more than the athlete, more than the movie star, if you get to know their stories. So Mohamed Thiam, thank you for being here today. I hope to learn a lot from you. I will be doing the listening, hopefully, and you'll be doing more of the talking.
No, we're gonna exchange.
And I hope that my audience can learn a lot from you. I know for sure that I'll be able to learn a lot of things from you.
Right.
So welcome to the show.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for having me today, and I just wanna thank you for the work that you do, because we need to have people like you who are always going outside and capturing the story of the people who are around us. And like you have said, we can always learn from someone, unless we get the chance to sit down with that person, get to hear their stories and etc. So I think that that's very important, and I must commend you for the work that you do, and I'm excited to be here.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So first of all, the journey starts from the beginning, and the beginning of any human being is their childhood. That's where, when your mom gives birth to you, obviously your father had to be involved.
Right.
But the moment you're born, that's where the journey begins. So take us through your childhood, man. I'm just curious to learn about, because we're shaped by our childhood in so many ways. And I want to go back. How was your childhood? Like, first of all, let's start with your name. I know we touched on it earlier. The name Mohamed Thiam, is Thiam a family name? And again, am I saying it right?
Yes, you do say it right. I think Thiam is a last name that is very familiar in Senegal.
Yeah.
So most of the people in Senegal, you will see a lot of people whose last name is Thiam.
Yeah.
Or sometimes Mao. And for me, I get my last name from my dad in Senegal. And if I have to talk about basically my childhood, I will say that like any other young people who came from Africa and from Senegal in general, I will say that we were born in a place that is deprived. Not because it is deprived, but because of what happened before in the past. I will say colonialism, imperialism, and those things have ways that impact, our generation. In a means that you will see a lot of people, they don't get the chance to go to college, or even they don't have high ambition because of the structure, the socio-economic well-being, or the socio-economic structure that we have in Senegal. So I was lucky enough to be born in a family that I have a mom who was very dedicated to see me strive in my life. And the only way that she thinks that I can be able to get to that point was me being educated. So I'm the youngest one in a family of two, in a family of three, I would say. So I have one big brother and one big sister. I'm the youngest one in my family. So none of my uh, brother or sister didn't get a chance to go to college or even like aspire to high ambition in their life. So I was the one who was really involved in my studies, and also I have a mom who always challenged me at that time because she used to be a cook, and then she used to work two or three jobs, to be able to provide us the basic need that we needed to be able to have a life. So seeing her always working every day so hard that she can, so I asked myself that there is no way for me to fail her, because that my dad wasn't around because like he working and he has never been around. So I get my drive from my mom because at an early age she showed me what is needed to be done. If I have to wake up 4 or 6 a.m. just for her to understand what I'm studying or learning, she has to be there for me. So basically, that's the value that I have, that I had growing up, and in certain kind of way, until now, I still have those same values because I feel like today I am the person I am today because of what happened in the past. The interaction that I used to have in my mom, and also the advice that I used to incorporate in my lifestyle. So I can be able to be a better person. So I think that's my childhood, and it was good. It has its up and down. Like I said, we were born in a place that we don't have that much to offer, but at the same time, we are very determined to change our life. And for me, that's the drive that I have. That's why I persevere in my education, and I finished my high school journey in Senegal, and also get a chance to work in different places. But one of the biggest ambition that I think that happened to me is for me being able to get a scholarship to come to the U.S. So yeah.
Well, that's an impressive story. But I'm gonna take it back a little bit. So
Right.
the place where you were born, was this in a city? Was this in the countryside?
Mhm.
What kind of take me through the setting of the place where you were born?
Yeah, I was born in the outskirts of Rufisque.
Rufisque.
Yeah, so Rufisque is just like a very small town
Yeah.
in Senegal, but it is not like a rural place, but it is more like an outskirt, I can say. So
Yeah.
it was like a small town, and a lot of people who were born in that places. So either they work, or other they're trying to get a survival job to be able to take care of their family because of the socio-economic structure, like I said. So you will not necessarily find a lot of people who are very embedded in their studies because they say this is a waste of time because I have my dad, I have my sister, I have my family, so I need to do something. So I think that's something that I should commend my mom, even if I know that she passed away, and I know today that she looked down on me with great pride.
Sorry about that. We'll get
Yeah,
to her.
yeah,
I'd like to
yeah.
ask more about that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I will say that it's because she understood that you know education was the only way for me to make something out of my life because I was smart, but at the same time I'm someone who is really want to understand how life works. How, like you said, going to learn after other people, ask them question, who are you, and then what is your story, and then how did you get to the point that you are right now. And I think that gathering those information when I was young, I feel like is exactly what kind of shaped my trajectory in my life. But at the same time, I also spend time to read a lot and make sure that I can always learn from people who came before us, and then see how I can incorporate whatever feedback that they produce in their life. So
Yeah.
yeah.
We'll get to your mom for sure because I wanna.
Yeah.
You mentioned her several times already, and I can tell that she's somebody that's special to you. And unfortunately, you mentioned to her in the past tense.
Right.
So I'm sure it's a painful subject, but I will get to it. But I want to ask maybe one or two more questions just about your neighborhood growing up,
Right.
and then we get to that point. So this place where you were born, why can't you said education was not really a big thing because people are saying, like, I just want to,
Mm-hmm.
what are you gonna do with this when even if you go to school? What are you gonna do with this?
Right.
So, if education wasn't a big thing, and you said people were working, what sort of jobs were available for people to take on? If people were not in school, what sort of jobs were available in your town growing up?
Yeah, I think the thing that we have a lot of survival jobs, like any other places that you go in Africa. So the
Right.
thing is that people are not really benefiting from the economic development that is taking place in Africa.
Right.
And it was the case in Senegal as well. So people who decided not to go to college or even further a high degree, they are pretty much more inclined to work in factory and warehouse and some kind of like entry-level position job, I can say.
Right.
But it is not because that's what they wanted, but for them they feel like that's exactly what they had to do, because the thing is that they have their family who rely on them. And something that I should mention is in Africa, the thing is that we are living in a unity kind of settings. We appreciate unity and cohesion.
Right.
And solidarity. It means that, for example, every time you see a problem, you are always trying to address that problem, no matter how small or how big it is. So if you grew up in a family of 4, and then like seeing your mom hustling to bring food on the table, or to even like do something with the family, so you as a man, you ask yourself, this is not right. I shouldn't let my mom struggle. I have to do something. So having that drive to do something, in most cases, is exactly what pushed a lot of people to settle for entry-level position, because for them the pride that they get is say, oh, I'm willing right now, okay, or I have the means to be able to contribute in my family. So I will say that that's the one aspect of it. But at the same time, I will say because of the socio-economic structure, so people are pretty much were born in a generalized poverty, in a way that, for example, you were born in a place that you haven't really seen somebody being a good example to you, So, and then it can go back and forth from generation to generation. And then, like, if you don't have a person who have a mindset that differs from your family compound, then I think it's going to be really, really hard for you to get out of the system. So that's why I say I must commend my mom for her to really understand at a very young, in my early setting, that education was a way for me to break away from that cycle of generalized poverty.
There's a saying that we're the product of our environment, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I had the windows open, which is why it's just coming here.
No, that's fine.
You have to excuse us, the audience. We had the windows open.
Right.
But what do you think? Where do you think your mom got that mindset from? Because she was the product of that environment too, correct?
Right.
And it sounds to me that she was the change maker. She was the chain breaker.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a better word for that.
Yeah.
If she was the product of that environment,
Mm-hmm.
where do you think she got that mindset from?
Yeah, I think my mom, she got that mindset from her mom. Okay. And I will say part of the reason why was that my mom used to be very smart, and she wanted to be a lawyer when she was young. As I got a chance to ask her question about her life and upbringing and so forth, but she dropped out of high school because the thing is that she was seeing her mom working in a restaurant, and then she wanted to be part of that. So she really didn't want to drop out of school, but she thought at that moment that that was exactly what she needed to do. So every time I used to have a conversation with her, I feel like she used to have this kind of resentment of not fully being the person that she wanted to be. Mm-hmm. So for her, she was asking herself that, okay, now that I wasn't able to become the person I wanted to be, I just want to make sure that my kid will be able to become someone in the future. Mm. And that's the reason why I would say that she was more inclined to me, sticking in my studies and making sure that I have the support that I need from her. to be able to go to be successful in my studies. And also, I will say also there is an influence from her big brother, because her big brother is one of the first generation in my family setting to go in France, study there, and then now move to the U.S. and then like make something out of his life. So that person, my uncle, his name is Babakar. I can mention his name. So he, I would say, is a role model in our family. And also, she used to be in contact with my mom, say, "Oh, you should just like help Mohammed, to stick on his studies, and then I'm pretty sure that he will make it if he stick in his studies." So those kind of two things is exactly where my mom get her drive, and also that's exactly where I get my drive from as well too.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask you a question that kinda came to me now. You were the third born, you're the last born.
Mm-hmm.
Why you? Why not your brother, your sister? Because it sounds to me that, funds were limited. And my assumption is that your mom looked at her abilities, her resources, and she said, I could be wrong, maybe she said, if resources, if funds were not an issue, I would have loved for my 3 kids to study, go abroad, and better themselves. But because my resources are limited, I must choose one.
Right.
And that person ended up being you. Why you and not your sister or your brother?
Well, that's the question I always ask myself until now. I cannot really, figure out why. But I think, life has its trajectory. And I think everybody has their own, destiny. But I would say for me, part of the reason why maybe that's me is because maybe I was the one who was inclined to my studies. Because I remember that when I was young, I was really, really fascinated about, like I said, how the world works. Why is it that, for example, like a lot of people in Senegal are not making it? Why they are not successful? What was wrong? So I used to go, I remember when I was like 12, 13, I used to go to the street and then like ask my elders, like, what is happening? Because for them, they are always, when you get 60, 65, they are always going to this big kind of like gathering, elderly gathering. So they play this kind of games, and then I always, join them and also ask them questions like, why is it that, for example, we as a young people don't have the kind of role model? But they used to say, Mohammed, you are young right now, but maybe as you grow up, you will understand. So I got some kind of frustration along the process of understanding why is it that people are living in poverty. And also seeing my mom also went through that process of working 2 or 3 jobs just to be able to have the basic need to survive. I was asking myself that something needed to be done. So I wasn't really inclined about finding an entry-level position, but I was like, well, I will do my best to be able to become successful in my studies. So I was, doing my best in my classes and, gathering books and then book that I think I can be able to help me grow, not only as a person, but intellectually, but at the same time as a human. So I will say that is something that helped me a lot in becoming the person I am as well too.
Did your brother and sister also finish high school in Senegal, or was it just you that finished high school?
Not really. My brother, he didn't finish high school because, like I said, also he was seeing my mom struggling, and also he said he wanted to do something. So he dropped out of high school and then start working in a small factory and etc. etc. And my sister also she studied as a designer in Senegal. Yeah, so she wasn't really inclined to her studies. So for her, she wanted just to make a living so she can be able to take care of herself and my mom. So I would say that was a setting that I have. But for me, I was like, it was painful to watch my mom going through those kind of, working one job after another. But I asked myself that I will get there one day. So that's why I was more inclined to focus on my study. And also I see, I always used to have a conversation with my sister because I'm really close to her. So we used to talk, about like our life and how we can be able to be one family, one united family, to be able to help my mom. And I think that's something that kind of shaped the person I am today, and also becoming responsible And also, I don't know, because like I said, wisdom is not something that you have to get because you are older. But I was the youngest one in my family, but I feel like every time something happened in the family, I'm the first person to be consulted. But I don't know what is the reason why. Maybe, I don't know, but that, I cannot know the reason why. But
You took responsibility at a young age.
yeah, at a very young age, I say, yeah.
You mentioned your mom a lot.
Yeah,
Her
yeah.
working hard to make sure you know, there's food on the table for the three of you and
Right.
her. I think I haven't heard you talk about your dad a lot. Was he involved in your life? Was he a father figure in your life, or was he, did he leave when you were young?
Yeah, I think I would say at some point my dad had been and is still part of my life. But if I have to talk about my childhood, I would say the person that kind of really impacted my life, I would say, would be my mom. But part of the reason why was also my mom was making him accountable. And then I think that it was her responsibility to just check on my dad, say, oh, by the way, this is your obligation, you have to do it. So, yeah.
Now let's get to the. She came up a lot, and I would like to go there if you don't mind, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So obviously this was someone very important to you growing up.
Yeah.
Someone who shaped your life, someone who shaped your success, which we'll get to. Someone who wanted to see her son achieve heights that she could only dream of.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, she wasn't there, or she's not here to celebrate with you.
Yes.
And so that's gonna be painful for you.
Mm-hmm.
But before we get to her, I know that Senegal is a French-speaking country,
Right.
and here you are speaking,
English.
high-level English,
Right.
not just simple vocabulary, but
Right. Mm-hmm.
Academic English. Let's
Right.
put it that way.
Okay.
Just to get to that point, actually, the first time I got to know about you was Aaron Rocha.
Aiden, yeah.
Aaron Rocha, you know, he used to work for Interfaith.
Right.
And he said to me one day, he said, listen, there's this guy on my job that I think you should meet.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, okay, like who's this guy you're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, his name's Mohamed. He's very, very smart, very well spoken.
Mm-hmm.
I think you two hit it off.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, ooh. I didn't tell Aaron, because Aaron was one of my close friends.
Right.
But I was like, God damn, Aaron thinks I'm smart.
Of course you are. Mm-hmm.
So I didn't tell him that though.
Mm-hmm.
And I follow Interfaith on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
And one day they shared the post of you. I think
Right.
you were giving a speech somewhere, you were at an event, and then they
Right.
share
Mm-hmm.
a post, and it had Mohammed on it. So I click on your page, and I go, oh, this is the guy Eden was, he's got to be the guy Eden was talking about.
Right.
So I'm reading your post on Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm seeing these words. I'm like, man, who's this kid?
Mm-hmm.
And I said to myself, if this guy speaks as well as he writes,
Mm-hmm.
then he's gotta be a special guy.
Right.
And then then I saw you at the indoor league.
Mm-hmm.
Nazi last year reached out to me and said, hey, listen, we're putting together an indoor team, adult league. I think he said we need players. Do you want to join?
Mm-hmm.
And I go, sure, I'll join. And then I show up, and then I see you. Obviously, we didn't know each other then. I just know I made the connection. I go, okay, this is Mohamed, but obviously we never talked about, Aiden or what you did on Interfaith.
Right.
We just played soccer together.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I got to know about you,
Mm-hmm.
because I was impressed. Aiden talked to me about you, and then I read your post on social. I follow you on Facebook, and I saw the things you were doing, the stuff you were doing,
Mm-hmm.
and wow, this is impressive. This guy's impressive. I gotta get him on the show. So that's kind of where my sort of my connection with you started.
Right.
But I'm saying all this because I know that Senegal is a French-speaking country.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you speak English so well.
Mm-hmm.
Now I know that language is something that can be learned.
Mm-hmm.
But did you learn English growing up in Senegal along with French, or did you not speak English until you came here?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. I would say Senegal is it is a French speaking country,
Yeah.
but at the same time we have different kind of language that we speak. We speak Wolof. So if you go in Senegal, on a local setting, people we speak Wolof. But if you go to the professional level, in everything that we do, people speak French.
Mhm.
But for me, I speak English. Part of the reason why was because when I went to the university, English was something that I chose as a major. So I combined my study on English literature, civilization, and British civilization literature, and African American studies and African studies and so forth. So I will say that's exactly how I learn English. But at the same time, even in Senegal, the educational system is that you have to learn different languages at a very young age.
Mhm.
So I remember I used to be very good at Spanish as well too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So at some point I was deciding whether I should choose English or Spanish because I was really high in Spanish. Yeah. But
How's your Spanish now?
oh, I feel like right now it's terrible because
Yeah.
I'm not really, sometimes like something about language is if you're not really practicing that,
Right. Right.
yeah, you can easily lose it. So
Yeah.
yeah, but that's how I learned English, and I graduated in Cheikh Anta Diop University of Dakar, which was one of the well-renowned university in Senegal, and I study English over there, and also I study American literature, and I study a lot of things that is English-wise. But I will not also say that it was a perfect English, because the thing is that when I was in Senegal, like the professors I used to have, of course they used to speak a very good English and so forth. But I was like very impressed at that time.
Mhm.
And then when I get the chance to go to the US, I was like, well, the English that we used to speak back home and the English that we speak here, it was totally different.
Right.
So I asked myself then, I need to improve myself, because I know that if you are a eager learner, I think that nothing will stand in your way of improving yourself and then growing. So for me, that's exactly how I see life. Things that I know I can be able to improve, I just want to make sure I spend time to improve them. And then things that I know that also I can be able to learn from, I also take time to make sure that I can learn from them as well too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yep.
So I'm going back and forth. I wanted to finish your topic on your mom before he gets to here.
Okay.
But let's just go back to that topic quick, and then we'll continue on the studies, because I think it's
No
a
problem.
good path we're going to.
Right.
So you graduate high school in Senegal, graduated university
Yeah, Cheikh Anta Diop University of Dakar.
in Senegal,
Yeah.
and then you came here.
Yeah.
Was your mom still alive at this point?
Yeah, so what happened was that the year after I finished my high school, the next year was the year that my mom passed. So the thing that was that she has, she used to have some kind of like illness, disease, I can say, and it was more about like head wise. And later on, she had a car accident, but it was a minor accident. But we didn't know really about the impact until later. And then at some point, she was hospitalized in the hospital in Senegal. But the thing is that the hospital was close to the university, so like it's really 2 blocks away from each other. So I remember at that time I used to commute between the hospital and also the university. I even like spend the night in the hospital. I bring my small suitcase. I took a shower in the hospital, and then also I studied in the hospital, and I went to school. And then when I came back, I run errands that my mom needed, and then for almost like 6 years until she passed. So I would say that pretty much like she passed away a year after I graduated from
How long was she in the hospital?
Huh?
How long was she in the hospital?
6 months. 6 months.
6 months.
Yeah, 6 months. Yeah. Yeah.
So the car accident increased the disease she had. She had this disease, and the car accident kind of
Yes, kind of accelerate
the
that.
process.
Yeah. Because her mom also, because my mom's side of the family, they have chronic disease like related to their head.
Yeah.
And it was something that my mom picked up from her mother. And
Okay.
but the small minor car accident that she had somehow impacted that process as well. So
Yeah.
it was very very hard for her. Later on, at some point, she was hospitalized in the hospital, making sure that she will get the adequate treatment,
Right.
for that. But as fate has it, so she didn't come out alive with that. So
How old was she?
she was 42. My mom passed away at the age 52.
52.
Yeah, 52.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. She's
Yeah.
such young.
Yeah,
young
she was
age.
just young age when she passed. Yeah.
Were you able to say your goodbyes? Wait, before she passed away at 6 months, was she able to communicate? Was she? So you were able to say your goodbyes?
Yeah. I think it was okay. That's one of the time that I would say was very tough for me because she used to be my best friend, I would say. So like I didn't really have a lot of friends growing up because she didn't want me to go outside because she was like, oh, Mohammed, I want you to just do this. And then also she used to be a cook, so I always went to school and I came back and then also help her with cutting this and cutting that and doing this and doing that. And when I remember the last night that she passed away. It was a Saturday night, and then I think around like 7 p.m. we were just talking because I was getting ready for an assignment, and then I was telling her that like somehow I was struggling to finish that assignment, and then she was like, well, why don't you just go to the hallway and then get it done? I was like, no, I cannot go because I just want to make sure you're okay. So we were just having this conversation, and at some point she was like, well, I just want to like have this conversation with you. I want you still to focus on your study. I know that I may not live longer at that point, but I just want you to continue doing what you do, and you will pretty much become someone because I have faith in you. And like I said, like you are the one that I choose, so you can carry up, with a family. So I think that was the last conversation that I had with her, and I think that until now, in everything that I do, I always carry that conversation with me. That's why I always ask myself, I cannot afford to fail my mom because there's a promise that I made to her, and then there's a promise that she made to me, and then now I have to always stick on that promise. So that's why in my life I'm not really taking time to distract myself from my purpose. I'm always very goal oriented, and also I always improve myself in everything, making sure that I can be the person that she wanted me to be, but also I can become the person that I want to be because, like you said, we come from a different country, and the thing is that we have a lot of young people like our ages, but the thing is they don't have the role model, in our society. So for me, what is important is to become the person that I want to be, but at the same time being a role model to our young people, so that when they look at me, they say, "Oh, by the way, Mohammed started from nowhere.
Right.
Now he made it. Why not me?" So just those kind of line is always something that I always think about in my life.
That's very important.
Yeah.
It's very, very important.
Right.
What is one lesson you learned from your mom that you carry with it's that's kind of become your life mantra?
Well,
And what can you pass on? What can you pass on to me and to the audience that you learned from your mom?
I will say number one, to always believe in yourself and believe in your ability, and to always take pride in your work. And number three, to always strive for the best. Become having this kind of mental excellence in everything that you do. Strive for excellence in everything that you do, and also never lose compassion for people who look different than yours. Making sure that people who are always struggling, no matter their race, their religion, their ethnicity, make sure that at least you can provide some sort of help to them. Yeah.
Sounds like you're such a powerful lady, man. It wasn't just you that lost somebody that day. Sounds like the whole Senegal and humanity lost somebody very important.
Right.
If that's the value that she installed in you, and that's the value she's gonna pass on, she passed on to you.
Absolutely.
And if that's if those are the values you are passing on to us, then we all lost somebody special that night.
Right. Yeah, we did. Definitely, we did. Yeah.
So, but I'm glad to see you doing strong, man. Because I've been around death a lot.
Right.
I don't wanna do comparison because I won't do comparison. I never want to do that. Right. But I kind of want to make an observation about things that I've seen when it comes to death. the results are always two ways.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen people who lost a loved one
Mm-hmm.
and be completely broken,
Hmm.
and they never become the same.
Right.
Yeah, I have friends who are like that. First-hand experience. This isn't something I read in in a book or a movie.
Mm-hmm.
I know people who've lost loved ones,
Right.
and they were never the same. You know, drugs got involved, depression, anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
and they seem to have never recovered.
Hmm.
And you know,
Yeah.
sometimes I don't want to blame them. I don't want to, like, you know, throw it, say, hey, haha, you know, like,
Yeah.
it could, because it's tough, man.
Right.
It's tough losing someone you love.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes you think, how can I move on?
Right.
How can one move on?
Right.
But I think sometimes when you move on, you kind of feel, I know for me, there's a time where I lost someone very close to me that I thought,
Mm-hmm.
kind of moving on was sort of a betrayal to them.
Right. Right.
Like, how could you laugh? How could you eat and have fun and
Mhm.
laugh and do this and do this
Yeah.
when they're not here, you know?
Yeah.
And then I've seen the other side where people who have lost someone very close to them, maybe
Mhm.
multiple people,
Right.
they say, you know what? I'm gonna wake up tomorrow
Mm-hmm.
and I'm gonna try.
Mm-hmm.
I know it. I don't feel like it. I don't feel like waking up.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like taking a shower.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like brushing my teeth. I
Right.
don't feel like going to work.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm gonna force myself to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it seemed, eventually,
Mm-hmm.
somehow, you know, you get used to the new norm.
Mm-hmm.
And I always commend people who say, life is terrible, but it's up to me to make it better. It's up to me to make a choice.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to commend you to have said, because I can't imagine what it was like that night, or that week, or that month, or that
Yeah.
year, or the
Yeah.
next 2 years. It
Yeah.
could have been terrible.
Mm-hmm.
But seeing you now, like, props to you, man.
Mhm.
So what is it? I mean, why did you not throw in the towel that night? Why did you wake up the next morning?
Yeah. Yeah. The thing is that I think if you have faith in God, and also you are someone who really is critical of life, the universe, you can also come to the point to realize that there's always existential reality. And then the existential reality that we have is that people always get sick and people die and something happens. So life is somehow unpredictable.
Mm.
So we never know what's going to happen. Of course, we can have our ambition, but we never know what tomorrow holds for us. So also it is a reminder to us that life is certain short, and then like we should always seize the moment. So it was that night, the same word that I told you, that's the same word that I kind of incorporate with myself, because for me, I'm somebody who always take time to think deeply about things. It will hurt me, but I will take time to understand why, and then from now on, how should I be able to move on with my life? And I think that what I share with you is exactly the reason why I decided the next day to move. But at the same time, I asked myself too, you know, I made that promise. I know now she's not here, or she was no longer there. So I just want to make sure that I can always move on with my life. So the next day, that's the mentality that I had at that time. But was it easy? No. But you know, I sometimes like you came sometimes that you needed to have that conversation, because like I say, I'm somebody who always asks questions all the time. But it is something that at that moment that I was missing, because I wish that she was there so I can ask her this question that I have, you know, that I had in my mind. But later on, I realized that, okay, now life, you know, has its own trajectory, and I just have to follow my destiny, and then making sure that I keep up to my promise and then become a better person, you know. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
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 That's awesome, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then you graduate, you go on to finish university. Despite the tragedy, you finish university.
Mm-hmm.
Well, before so now I'm gonna jump to your life in the U.S. But before I
Right.
jump,
Right.
did your mother's passing increase your relationship with your father? Did he come around more? Did he become more involved after your mom's passing? Or now that you have one parent, did you sort of transfer the love of your mom to your father now? How did the relationship change between you and your father after your mom passing? Or was it more or less the same?
Yeah, I think that, like any other human being, we always come to the point to realize that, of course, we can be angry, we can have some kind of resentment toward the people that we love, but at the end of the day, they are still our parents. For
Right.
me, when my mom passed away, I was very angry because I wanted my dad to be there, but he wasn't really around until my mom passed later on.
Mm.
So I always used to have this feeling of resentment toward him at that time. But also I had my sister who is very wise, and then she was like, Mohammed, just let it go, let it go. I know that he made a mistake, and maybe that's now for us to try to be connected with him. And then I think that he also, since my mom passing, he's also making some kind of effort to check on us, and making sure that we can have this kind of conversation with him to become closer to him as well. But I think until now it is a learning process. But yeah, we he's also trying his best as well to be close to us, and also I'm also trying my best to be close to him. But yeah, slowly, and
Did he marry another woman? Does he have another family? Your father?
yeah, my father, yeah, get married, and get married after my mom passed, and he moved on also with his life as well. But
Yeah.
yeah, I understand, because you always have to do what you have to do, as long as that you're a person, and also life has its own trajectory to go. So
Right.
yeah, he got married again, and eventually had other family, and so forth. Yeah.
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 How was the reconciliation process between you and your father? Because I know forgiveness is not easy.
Yeah.
Forgiveness is one of the most difficult things that one
Right.
has to manage. You like it's not always like, oh, I forgive you. People will say like, I forgive you,
Mm-hmm.
but it's much deeper than that. Especially when you gotta do the forgiving yourself,
Mm-hmm.
because I like the word you say. It's a process.
Right.
Like like have you would you say you've forgiven him, or like, or is there something that he has to do for you to get there, or how's that process been?
Yeah, yeah. I think, yeah. For me, like I said, I really don't hold anything against anyone.
Yeah.
So I can be angry, but it has to be 1-2 days.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, I always take time to think deeply about things, and I realize that, well, I should forgive him, no matter how painful it is for me.
Mm.
And like I said, if, for example, somebody was missing in your life for a very long time, and then even if you are trying to be close to that person again, it's not going to happen like overnight. So it is also going to be a process as well. So until now, we are still on the process of rekindling, our, bond together, and So, but yeah, we are trying to, reconnect again, but slowly and easily, I can say.
Is he in Senegal?
Yeah, right now he's in Senegal. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, all right. So you graduate from University of Senegal.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I think that you would have been top 1%. I don't know. Senegal is a highly educated nation right now. Like, what is the literacy rate in Senegal?
Yeah.
So if you graduated university, would you have been in top 5%? I would say.
Well, I will not say that. I will say I was among the smartest one, because I think that people who made it to Share Diop University, somehow they have a level of intelligence and
Right.
dedication to their studies. So I would say that people who really integrate, or people who attended Cheikh Anta Diop University of Dakar, those are the people, I will say, they are the best among the Senegalese, like the whole Senegalese nation.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Congrats
so
to
people
you.
who were there also, like, they were also doing their things. But for me, I wasn't really uh, comparing myself to other people, but I was more stick to how can I be able to pass this class and go to the next, and also accomplish my my BA degree, bachelor degree. So I would say that, yeah, I was among the best, and also everybody was still the best as well too. So
Right.
yeah.
So the point I'm trying to make is that you could have gotten a well-paying job in Senegal, I imagine, because I mean, you go to one top university in the country.
Yeah.
I'm sure that a lot of industries, a lot of employers would have been coming looking for you.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you decide to make the switch and across the ocean to come to the U.S.? How was that process? What was going through your mind?
Yeah. So the thing is that there is another story that came with that. So number one was the process of losing my mom along the way. But at the same time, the same year that I finished my bachelor degree, now was a time that the Senegalese academic system was transitioning from another system, a system that we call LMD. In French is licence, master, and doctoral. But it means, for example, you have to switch from a bachelor degree to a master's degree and to a PhD degree. So that's the new system that the Senegalese academic system, I would say people who are leaders in the academic system was trying to integrate within the Senegalese structure, academic structure. And at that time, uh, it was a good idea, but the thing is that the way that they did it at that time wasn't really right, because the thing is that they would not choose people based on their grade or academic merit or their accomplishment, but they were more inclined to get people because somehow they relate to that person, or somehow that person has connection with them, so it was how it was. And when I realized that injustice, I was the one who was really involved in trying to make things right. So I started a small community organizing group of students, and we were always fighting for our rights to be able to go to getting a master's, getting into a master's program. But it was a hard, it was a tough job to do, because no matter how hard we try, but people who were in the administrative setting was more reluctant to hear our voices. And as a result, there was a huge protest that's happened after that. And it was tough. It was tough because I saw a problem. I wanted to fight. I wanted to solve that problem. But the thing is that I wasn't the one who had the final say, because you have the leaders who had to make that decision. So I try to fight for people who look like me, also have the drive, have the education, but it didn't work out. And then later on, there was a phenomenon in Senegal called illegal migration. So at that time, because of the Senegalese setting, a lot of fishermen or anglers at that time was also deprived from the economic setting, because the Senegalese government had signed a contract with the French government. So now most of the big fish that we have so is exported to France. And then like local anglers or local fishermen, now they can go to the sea, but they cannot really get anything. So that created a level of frustration or cynicism among fishermen, and they say, now let's be a broker. Let's say I can have a small pirogue, so let's identify 15 or 56 people who are interested in getting into the illegal migration from Senegal to Europe. I will say to Spain, or to Italy, and etc. So they embark on that journey. So a lot of people who were not really selected for that master's program, some students actually get involved with that.
Illegal migration.
Yeah, illegal migration. And then until now I know some of the family of people, they still now searching for them, but I know exactly what happened to them, but I don't have the
Evidence.
yeah, I don't, I mean, not evidence, but I don't have really the will
To tell
them that your son has been part of that stuff, because I know they didn't survive. So that was something that was really impacted me a lot, because I saw a lot of bright Senegalese people who had the future ahead of them, but because of what happened, they decided to choose otherwise, and then something happened to them. So that's why I ask myself that okay, if I get a chance to get a master's program, if I get a chance to be integrated, or if I get a chance to be selected to a master's program, I just want to make sure that I will talk about those issues. And as a consequence, as a result, I will say that my thesis dissertation dealt with that, and in a more broad way. So, yeah.
This is while you were in Senegal.
It was exactly when I was in Senegal, yeah, because I have this kind of understanding of what happened before, and also what happened, and I wanted to make sure that I can be able to expose those knowledge, to the whole Senegalese nation, even if that, like I say, I still don't have the power, but still, people who would like to learn from what happened can be always go to my work and then see what I have done. If they decided to challenge the Senegalese system, they can always do it as well.
Well, how was your thesis taken? Obviously, the professors or the PhD people who people who were in charge of your project, they would have been part of the regime,
Yeah. The thing is that
How would they have taken your thesis if your thesis was critical of them? How did they take it?
Yeah, I think they like any other corrupt nation, and I think every time you are doing something that is contradictory to what they expect, or
Right.
if you are doing something to challenge them, of course you will be a number one enemy. So I will say at some point I become a number one enemy because I already started this grassroots organization,
Right.
and then doing some kind of protesting here and there, and then etc. etc. So what kind of changed my life from Senegal to here in the U.S. was that there was a time that my uncle Babacar Bao, so he was selected by the Senegalese government to be the one who was at the forefront of inaugurating.
This is your uncle who studied in France before, right? Is that the one you mentioned earlier? Who was in France?
Yes.
Okay.
And then he moved to the U.S. And at that time, he was contacted by the Senegalese government, so he can be at the forefront of inaugurating the Senegalese Black Civilization Museum. So he was the one who was in charge of the project.
I'm sorry. What program was that?
It was a Black Civilization Museum.
Museum. Okay.
Yeah, museum. So
Okay.
he was the one who was chosen to be the curator of that museum.
Okay.
And also be at the forefront of everything that was related to the project.
Okay.
And then when he came in Senegal, so he was saying that I was involved in those things. And then he was like, Mohamed, I know that you want to change the system, but it will take you time, because the thing is that, number one, you were born and raised in Senegal, and number one, people who are really, leaders in Senegal, they're not really giving you the time to sit down with you and then know exactly what is happening. So now all we can do right now is, I have this huge project that I'm involved with the Senegalese government. So I want you to come work with me. So I was working with him when he came in Senegal at that time. It was around 2017, the summer of 2017. And then he brought some professors from Cornell and from Syracuse University. So we were working together about the project. And ultimately in 2018, some professors who came from Cornell and Syracuse, they found me to be a very fascinating person, and they wanted to know more about me.
Right.
So they invited me for dinner, and I got a chance to sit down with them and talk about my life and then my academic settings and my academic journey. And they say, well, why don't you, since now you're gonna be able to do your master's here, why don't you apply to a program in the US? So they let me know about the Pan-African Studies program in Syracuse University. So I was like, well, I have never heard of that before, so I need time to think about it. But sometimes it took me almost a week to think about it, because I was like, this is a huge move, because my sister was in Senegal. So
right.
I didn't automatically walk away from her at that time because of what happened to my mom. So I was like, well, let me just take time. So I take time, and I think that this is a new opportunity for me. Let me just explore the opportunity. So since that day, I started doing my research and about the program, and then see what do they offer, and etc. etc. And then later on, I apply for a master's program in the African American Studies program. I got accepted for that. So that's how I switched from Senegal to the U.S. So I got a scholarship. That's why I came to the U.S.
What year was that when you come to the U.S.?
I came in the U.S. In 2018, the fall of 2018.
And you came to do your master's in Pan-African Studies?
Pan-African Studies, yeah, at Syracuse University.
How many years is that program?
So the program was only 2 years, but something about the program was that, or still now, among the people who apply for that program, only 5 people are selected for the program. Only 5 or 6 are selected.
How many applicants were in there?
Yeah, a bunch of applicants. I don't know how many, but people are always applying for that program, but only 5 or 6
So you were
people.
part of the 5?
Yeah, so luckily I was part of the 5, and I got accepted for that program. And then, that's how I started my journey here in the U.S., in Syracuse.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's very impressive.
Yeah.
So you graduated in 2021 then? 2020? 2020.
Yeah, but because of COVID, we had our graduation ceremony in 2021, but I graduated in 2020.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so while in Senegal, you also study Pan-African as well?
Yeah, Pan-African Studies, because my bachelor degree is a culmination of African studies, African American studies, uh, American literature and civilization, and also political science. And so it is just like a culminated kind of like a culminated major where you have to study a lot of things. So for me, I already choose things that I think were of interest to me, which is African studies, African American studies, international relations, and African American studies, and so forth.
I'm gonna ask about these programs.
Yeah.
And then I'm also gonna take it back to see how it is to Africa, because I mean, there's no denying that our continent is in need of fresh blood, fresh ideas.
Right.
And obviously, our generation, hopefully, should play a role into bringing life into Africa.
Right.
I know that recently in West African countries there's been a lot of coup by military juntas.
Right.
And I know also in your country you have a new young leader.
Right.
Which I don't know much about him. I'm sure you have you have an opinion on him better than I do. But at least for me, like seeing a thing change, I don't know, brings hope to me. But I know also that whole change doesn't equate to good.
Right.
I mean, you can see the case in Libya, for example. I mean, Gaddafi was there for 30 plus years. I don't know, maybe 40 plus years.
Right.
But look what happened after his death. So change doesn't necessarily equate to, you know, hospitals or schools or road or criminal justice system.
Right.
You know what I mean? It sounds to me so far with your studies of Pan-African, you know, African American studies and political science. One, it shows me that you're interested into public service. That's one.
Right.
Two, it is my assumption that you have a thing or you have a niche or you have a want to serve particularly the black people on the continent and maybe also in the US. So first of all, what is Pan-Africanism? What is African American studies? I think I don't know. I assume that Pan-Africanism sort of captures the African American piece as well. You know, maybe I don't know if there's a difference. Is there a difference between? First of all, is there a difference between Pan-Africanism and African American studies? If so, what is the difference?
Yeah, I think okay. So technically, African American studies, I would say, are more embedded within the structure of story of African American. But the thing is that everything is very intertwined because those struggles that African American are facing in this country, are more intertwined with the story that other people in the diaspora are facing, whether Africa, the Caribbean, South Americans, and etc., etc. So the Pan-African, part of the reason why they say Pan-African is the study of the broad spectrum of Africa, the United States, Latin America, and South America. So it was more about trying to understand the history that happened and how those history are connected, because somehow they all have the same, they don't have this, okay, they have different kind of story, but somehow their story are very similar, and also how we can learn from those stories, and also how we can understand the real issues that happened back in the past. So maybe as a beneficiary of the Pan-African Studies program, I can say something that I learned from that program was that you will be exposed to a deep literature understanding. And when I say that, it is more about being exposed to a lot of literature. So you have to have the kind of critical mindset to be able to understand, not only understand, but at the same time reflect on any specific issues, but it has to be a very scholarly understanding. So it will, number one, expose you to that literature, and then in order for you to get that literature, you have to read a lot. But at the same time, you have to be a fast thinker because you have a lot of books that you have to read, and also you have, some kind of reflective piece of paper that you have to write. So they train you to understand the story of the past, but at the same time, they train you as a person to become more critical thinker about issues that people are facing in general. So that's number one. But also the Pan-African Studies program will help you to understand what Africa, the United States, Latin America, South America has in common. I can say they share the racial component. Because if you go to, for example, Brazil, you will see that, for example, the first generation of people who came in Brazil, they are from Africa at some point because of the slavery and Middle Passage and etc., etc. So you can always see, for example, how the fate of imperialism and colonialism has shaped the diaspora setting, which is the scattering of people to different places, whether in the US, the Caribbean, and etc. So it will expose you to those knowledge. But something about it is once you finish that program, so you are more apt to civil service, or you are more apt to identifying social issues and then address those social issues. That's why people who really graduate from Pan-African Studies, they are doing amazing things in their life. They are the ones who are always like fighting for justice, equal justice, and making sure that we are always promoting economic empowerment, and also promoting, equity and inclusion in everything.
Impressive.
Yeah.
I think that history, it's great to understand history.
Right.
Because when you know your past, you can kind of prepare yourself for the future.
Right.
There's no denying that imperialism and colonialism did a lot of damage to people in Africa, the continent of Africa. And one thing about I know Josh touched on it earlier, that he mentioned that the guy he went to help move was a Republican. He said you'd have liked him.
Okay. Right.
So for me, I don't deny the evils of imperialism and colonialism. I think they're awful.
Yeah.
I think that the continent is still struggling today.
Right.
Because of it. I'm sure you agree with me.
Right, I do.
But one question that I have for you, because you're a scholar in this, I'm not a scholar in this. Obviously we know the answer on who was to blame for colonialism and imperialism. You and I know the answer who was to blame, the continent that was to blame.
Right.
We know the answer to that. No denying about it. We can agree on that.
Right.
The shortcoming of the continent today, you look at what's happening in Sudan. You look at what's happening in Congo. I'm from Congo.
Right.
You look at what's happening in Senegal. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm sure that even though they got a new president, I'm sure the poverty rate is still high. I'm sure the unemployment is still high among the youth, which is why you mentioned on how 2017 your friends were drowning on the sea trying to reach Europe.
Right.
The same case every day you see in Mediterranean Sea. People are drowning every day. Young men, African, just like you and I, drowning every day. So it's a pandemic for the whole country. High unemployment rate, high literacy rate, all sorts of disease you can think of, disease that can be cured in the matter of seconds here. Those diseases are killing our people. Malaria is still killing people every single day. Simple things like that. Cold, As a scholar in Pan-Africanism and the effects of colonialism and imperialism, are we still blaming the same person today for the shortcoming and mismanagement and the chaos that's happening, turmoil happening in our countries right now? What is the literature saying now?
Yeah, I think that you have to really take time to think about those issues in a very open-minded way. And you have some scholar who still now are blaming people who invaded Africa for that. But the thing is that that happened like years and years ago. But the thing is that in post-colonial Africa, also, who do we have to blame? And if you look closely, by the time that in 1960 all the way to 70 and 80, you realize that you have a lot of African nations becoming independent. And in most cases, people who used to be the first leaders in Africa, really, they were more associating themselves with the colonial setting, because the thing is that the European colonial, let's take for example, in the case of Senegal, I can give you a very specific example for that. I know that the European, the French colonial power, so they left Senegal around the 1959. In 1960, Senegal became independent. But our first president, his name is Léopold Sédar Senghor. So he used to be a beneficiary of the French educational system. So he studied in France and then came back in Senegal, become president. But the thing is that for him, he was more inclined to the values that the French has to offer. And in such a kind of way that also he was cooperating.
He grew up there.
Yeah, so he was cooperating with the French administration. Whatever the French administration said, that's exactly what he's doing, or he was doing at that time. So we don't have that freedom, that total freedom that we say that a nation is free. So we don't have that kind of freedom, because everything still are under the control of the French government and etc. So some scholars argue that, of course, colonialism and imperialism had an effect on the socio-economic setting that we have in Senegal.
In 2024, they were saying 2024, right?
Yeah, 2024 until now, people are always still like digging into those literature, but they still blame what happened in the past. But past 1960, where now you transition from colonialism to post-colonialism, so you have our leaders. Also, they are very corrupt, number one, but also they're not really helping young people to be able to strive. And I can give you the example of Senegal. The reason why, for example, people wanted to do a master's degree, but they weren't able to do it because nobody gives them that chance, because they think that they don't deserve it. So these are the things that always shift the trajectory of most African nations that you go. So that's why people are living in poverty. People are living in a marginalized settings. People are not really benefiting from what Africa has to offer. And then we're not really like poor, because we have been deprived from our resources. So now the thing is that there is a change, a movement for a change, in a way that now people like me, or people like who look like me, they came to the US, go to Europe and etc. But they study what happened. But now they went back to be able to contribute. But now the thing is that as those people who are there willing to open the door for them, because the chance of getting if you have the chance to leave your country and go to another one, it widen your perspective. And especially if you become a scholar, there's a lot of things that you can learn from what you have learned. And like I said, that is something that we have always to think about, knowing that, for example, these new young fresh people, educated people who would like to bring the change in Africa, most people in Africa, leaders, they should open the door for them to be able to have a discussion with the leaders, say, what is wrong? What should we do? And then I think that until they're not allowing us to have that conversation, I think that Africa, no matter how hard they are trying, it's going to be really hard for us to see the change in that. Yeah.
So it's okay. I mean, very impressive. So you said that that's one side of the scholar. What is the other side? Because I get that part, because I've been exposed to that part for all my adult life. Mm-hmm. Because I listen to these scholars, Pan-African scholars, and and they always say we are this way because of what the European. I'm just gonna say it, man.
Yeah.
Because what the white man is doing for us. Yeah. Because I'm not gonna push around anymore.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We don't have schools. We don't have hospitals. we don't have law of land. We are deprived. I like the word using the word deprived of resources.
Yes, yes.
We are deprived of the quality of life because of a white man.
Mm-hmm.
I always hear that, man. I always hear that. You know, I open Instagram. You look at the Black Lives Matter movement.
Mm-hmm.
You look at the Black Panther, what they stood for.
Right.
You look at you look at that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's always that narrative.
Right.
Now, listen.
Mm-hmm.
When Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana, Patrice Lumumba,
Right.
those guys of Thomas Sankara, those guys, right?
Right. Right.
When those guys were saying those words,
Mm-hmm.
they meant it, and they paid their lives with it,
Right.
right?
Right.
But when it's 2024
Mm-hmm.
and the same slogans are still there, there was a point in time where I really said it's the white man. I'm deprived because it's the white man, right? There's a point in time where
Yeah.
like, because sometimes you get. I might say the word indoctrinated. You could be you could say I'm wrong, which is kind of this is good. I want you to disagree with me,
Right. Right.
and educate me, because actually you are a scholar. I'm not a scholar. But at some point you have to say, when is the blame going to stop? Because you mentioned the corruption.
Right.
You said African leaders are corrupted. You mentioned your first president, right? You got independence now. Hooray! Senegal's independent.
Yeah.
Hey, the guy who's the president,
Mm-hmm.
grew up in the French,
Right.
speaks French like the Frenchman, and he's black skin color,
Yeah.
but the man says French.
Right.
So he's there for he's working as first Senegal president, but everything about him, his policies, everything, it's all
Mhm.
Frenchanized. He's
Right.
there to serve the master and French,
Mm-hmm.
whoever it was at the time,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm all for the protesters. I'm all for the scholars to write
Mhm.
about how we can change our continent, right?
Mm-hmm.
But my question to you is, why here? When do you think we're going to say, hey, maybe it's not the white man anymore, maybe it's somebody else, or maybe it's both? Does that question make sense?
Yeah, it make really sense. That's why I said, we have two settings, and then even if you take time to read my thesis dissertation, you will understand.
Is that available online somewhere?
Yeah,
With this
if you go to Syracuse website,
Okay.
or you can type my name, and
Yeah.
you will see my work.
Yeah.
So the way I put it was that on the process of writing my master's thesis dissertation, already I was embedded with the literature. I already had that literature, but now it was a matter of me going to Senegal and then trying to deep into the national archive, and then retrieve some information from that, and then see how can I critically take those materials and then incorporate them in my thesis. And then two of my hypotheses that I work on my thesis. The first one is that if a dependent relationship develop between a former colonial power and its former colony, then the former colony's economy is more likely to be regressive, because you still have that kind of dependent aspect of it. So that, like I said, whatever that Senghor has to do, he has to consult
Right.
the French leader. So
Right.
we are not really free, but we still are dependent on the French leaders as well. So that, in some aspect, has a negative connotations on some of the policies that we have in Senegal, because we are borrowing from a model that is not really fitting our social economic setting. And the other hypothesis that I draw from my work was that the more that we have authoritarian regime in Senegal, the less likely people are able to benefit from the economic development. So poverty, number one, can be explained because people who have the resources are not sharing those resources. Number one, why? Because there is the scarcity mentality, which means, for example, things don't come easy to you. So once you grab hold of resources, you don't want to share the resources with anyone, except your surrounding, your compounding.
Your tribe.
Yeah, your
tribe,
yeah, people you can be able to relate
from
to,
your village,
and
yeah.
etc.,
Right,
etc., etc.
right.
But number one is that as long as you excel to the position of power, as supposed to being an example, see what is not working, how can we be able to fix those problems, and how we can involve people that we think can be able to be part of that discussion, and then we can all work together to make the change. So if we're not doing that, then at the end of the day, then people are not really benefiting. So they are depriving people. And now as a consequence now, people, they just like find alternative way of living. Let's say if you see a boat that is say, oh, give me $2,000, I can be able to bring you to Europe. Then you'll be able to take that risk if you don't have that kind of like mindset of like, staying in Senegal. So I think that's part of the problem. But the thing is, number one, we have to blame what happened in the past, but still within our compound we have to blame our leaders, because what happened years ago, decade ago. So now we have a new regime, new settings. But something beautiful about it is now, even I can give you the example of Senegal, young people are now very aware that they have the power to be able to make a change. And it happened within the Senegalese.
So the protesters.
Yes, protesters. Now, it happened with the Senegalese. When you look at what happened with our election now, young people were there.
Right.
And then they were able to, trade their life to be able to see that freedom. So now people are becoming more aware of their responsibility, and people are now more involved. And then now that's exactly how maybe here in 10 years, the trajectory of Africa can be able to be seen as a continent that is, deserving of seeing its economic well-being fully developed, and then Africans for Africans, like we said. But every time that we are trying to create a separation, and then people working in silos as opposed to not working together, but I think that it's going to make it really hard for us to see the change that we want to see in Africa. So.
Yeah, I saw that. First of all, I have to say Senegal is one of the best democracies in Africa.
Yes.
I think I would say it's the best. I would say it's the best.
Yeah.
I thought that Macky Sall wanted to extend the election date, and they said, hell no, you got to leave. So.
Yeah, that's true.
It would not have happened in my country or other countries. So I was very, very happy to see that that the regime was able to change, elections were able to take place.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that, I'm just going to ask straight up, man, do you think that because I'm with the party that says, all right, man, enough with your BS and blaming their colonialism and imperialism.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying, man, enough with that. You're not gonna fool me and say it's been 60 years,
mm-hmm.
right? Every year I ask you about why there's no school in my village. You tell me, oh, imperialism and colonialism.
Mm-hmm.
Why are women giving birth right and open and outside because there's no house? Oh, imperialism
mm-hmm.
and colonialism. 60 years, my guy. Come on now. Come on. So I'm calling them on their BS, saying like, listen, come on now. You mentioned on the enriching themselves and their families and their compound, right. And this. That's exactly what happens, right? Mm-hmm. So my question to you is,
mm-hmm.
as a scholarly person studying Pan-Africanism
mm-hmm.
and how to better the continent of Africa, improve the conditions of the people there.
Mm-hmm.
Straight up, man, do you think that these guys are just incompetent and corrupt?
Yeah, I think, some of them, I would say they are incompetent. But I will not say they are fully incompetent, because I feel like if you get to the point of become a leader or become a president, it means that you have a record that you base your running from to become the person that you become as a leader.
Right.
But the thing is, sometimes it depends on your personality as a person, because the thing is that power changes people in most cases.
Right.
So you will see a lot of politicians. They say, "Oh, I do care about my community and etc. etc." But when they excel to the position of power, now I feel like their actions deviate from their words they're saying, and that's pretty much the kind of political setting that we have in most African countries. So we have our leaders; they are educated. That's why somebody choose them as president. But still, their actions are not reflecting their words, because they say something but they do something else. So now create a kind of like frustration and cynicism as well. But also there's a part of the corruption that you say. Even here, look at the US, for example. Part of the reason why I like the Pan-African Studies program is you can see the commonalities that we have, because in the US you don't have colonialism, but you have slavery. You have slavery, and then you have Jim Crow, and then now you have the segregation, you have discrimination, and you have Black Lives Matter being there as a voice to reckon on to make change. But now, if you ask African American, they will say, of course, slavery has an impact in a way that now I'm living, but that was a decade ago, or that was like a very, very, very long time. But now, we have to blame people who are in the leadership setting. So people, for example, that's why you have, like you say, we have some kind of example. You have in Senegal, Patrice Lumumba, you have Marcus Garvey, and then you have here in the United States, you have Martin Luther King, you have Malcolm X, and you have Amilcar Cabral, you have Amilcar Garvey, and you have all these forces to reckon on, because for them, they were more inclined to what they believe in. This is a philosophy of freedom that they believe, and whatever they say is exactly whatever they do. But in Africa, you have, for example, people say, oh, now we have to make change. We have to make sure that we are involving our youth. But are we really doing that? And then if we're not doing that, it means that at some point you have a mind that is corrupted, because your actions are not aligned with your words. And then if that's the case, then I would say to myself, I describe that as being corrupt, because you are just like portraying something that you really don't believe deep down in yourself. So we have those two aspects of it, and I think that until we're not trying to eradicate those things in our setting, in our political spectrum, then I don't think that change will happen. But of course, now we have awakening of consciousness of many African young people who are unconstrained by old habits or convention, and then ready to seize what is ought to be. So they are more now involved in the political setting. If they see injustice, they will protest. They will march on the street, making sure that their voice are heard. So I think that is also one step forward toward progress as well too. Yeah.
When you said, I want to go back to something saying, you said Africa for Africans. That's sort of the slogan of your program, your Pan-Africanism, right? Africa for Africans.
Yeah. So Pan-Africanism, it is more about having a unity. So like Africa united. And like I say, based on what I have explained to you so far, we are not really working together. We are not really working together, because people are always trying to advance their interest. In anything that they do, they are always trying to advance their interests, as opposed to working collaboratively with other leaders and making sure that we bring the change that we need to Africa. But as long as that we have that corrupted mindset, people who always listen to outside factors to influence that the way we should lead our country, then I think that also is going to have, it's not going to help us. That's why I say Africans for the Africans, in a way that, for example, African leaders have to unite themselves and then see what is not working. How can we just like walk away from those old type of old bureaucracy, red tape that we have, and then now a new innovative way of thinking, making sure that, for example, people who are educated are also be included part and parcel of the conversation, and then see how we can be able to work as a one block of people, and then address those issues slowly, and then slowly you will see change.
Yeah, we going towards the end of the conversation.
Right.
I'm gonna give you my conclusion. Then you can rebuttal and tell me where I go wrong. Again, I'm not the scholar here. You're the scholar. I think we need to take responsibility as Africans.
Right.
I think we're letting our leaders off the hook so easily when they say, "Oh, you don't have this because of colonial imperialism." I think I think it's not. We're letting them off the hook easily, and 60 years for most of those countries should be enough for us to have made progress. We have made very, very, very little. I think in some countries, the only progress that has been made is just post-colonial, just the name.
Right.
Because Africa is not for the Africans. Africa is not just for the Africans, right? And when we talk about the issues that are happening in Africa, I will say that the black people, black Africans, are doing most if not all the damages are happening. Now, I know there are some European countries benefiting, Chinese company benefiting,
Right.
but they are making deals with black Africans.
Mm.
There are companies in Congo where I'm from, the Chinese companies, mining companies who are there at the invitation of Congolese first class.
Right.
And those people, that's why I asked, do you think they're incompetent?
Mhm.
They know damn well that these companies being there, they're exploiting the labor, cheap labor of people who are underage, but they don't care. These people are protected by the government, or sometimes they're part of the government.
Right.
Sometimes they own these mines. So they're supposed to enforce the law,
Right.
but they are the ones spearheading the breaking of the law.
Right.
So don't come to me and tell me that I'm suffering because of slavery imperialism, because I'm gonna say BS.
Yes. Yes.
Obviously, I have to acknowledge that it was wrong, but I'm gonna say BS. So my conclusion on this whole matter is we need to be accountable. Our leaders need to be accountable, and we need to be accountable. We need to take responsibility and stop playing the blame game, right?
Yeah.
So that's just my conclusion. And I support these movements, man. These people that say we need change, we need change, we need change. I have nothing wrong with that, with the protesters saying we need change. I just think that because when you are demanding something, the first thing you have to know is who you're demanding it from, right?
Right.
Because if you want a car, but you go to the grocery store that sells fruits, you're not gonna come home with the car.
Right. Right.
You need to go to a car dealership if you want a car, right? So the protesting is necessary because we don't have these resources. The basic needs we don't have, so we need those for sure. But we need to go to the right place to get it, and that means we need to go to our elected leaders. I love what Senegal did when people protested Macky Sall trying to extend his regime. And I think we need to do more of that. We need to demand from ourselves.
Right.
We need to demand from our leaders. When I open Instagram or Facebook or read these blogs of Pan-African scholars, right, who are addressing France's, what France is doing or U.S. is doing, I don't belittle those articles. I don't, because I'm not saying that those things that France or U.S. is being accused of isn't happening.
Right.
Not at all. But I'm looking at the lens of they're doing it because they have made a deal with somebody there. And I recently made a statement on Instagram that I said something on social media and I got heat for it. Where I said, if somebody gives me a knife to stab, see you, my brother, and somebody gives me a knife to stab you, and I stab you, the person who gave me the knife is not the problem, or the knife is not the problem. I'm the problem because I did the stabbing. I should have said, no, I'm not going to stab my brother. So that's going to be my conclusion on this whole matter. Yeah.
I agree with you. Yeah, I think I agree with you. So, there's maybe this is a statement I would be closing with in the discussion. I know that we have a lot to discuss. Yeah. But maybe it will be another episode.
I want to have another episode for sure. I want to have another episode because I want you to teach me a lot.
Yes, definitely. But the thing is that, seated in a prison cell, Martin Luther King said, human progress doesn't stem from the will of inevitability, but it comes through the tireless effort of men willing to be co-worker of God, co-worker with God. So that quote kind of reflect of what needs to be done, which is number one, individual responsibility, but at the same time mutual responsibility. Like you say, somebody who is trying to stab you, the knife is not the problem. The person who gives you the knife is not the problem. But now you are the one, you who is making the action of stabbing someone. Yeah. Your actions. Yeah. You are the problem. Right. So I think that we always need to take responsibility, and then making sure that, for example, our action are aligned with our words. So if we say we want to see change, now how we can bring change by number one, doing things in the right way, but number one, consulting people who are also making those changes as well. Because the thing is that, like you said, we don't have the kind of settings, people who are in a high leadership position, they don't really open up the doors to unleash the potential that people have to express their voices and etc. So that's what I will conclude. Yeah.
Mohamed, thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
I
Thank
hope to
you.
have you for another episode, man.
Yes.
You're a very interesting guy, man. I hope to have
Thank
you.
you. Thank you very much. Thanks so much for having me. It was a good conversation.
Yeah, thank you. So
All
I
right, thank you.
appreciate it.
All right.
Yeah. How do we do, Josh?